could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2020 NFL Draft using our new grading scale from 5 to 1. Each pick will be given a score, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. We will tally up those scores, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control. As this is the You Pick format, simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating 2 things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples: Bears, next, Chicago, next, CHI, the Bears, next. You get where I'm going. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Bears. Chicago Bears, and what a disappointing campaign 2019 was for the Bears. Coming off of winning the division in 2018 under first-year head coach Matt Nagy, expectations were through the roof going into the 2019 season, and things kind of fell apart. Mitchell Trubisky took a massive step backwards, and injuries had a part in that as well. Matt Nagy, I thought, bit off more than he could chew. I thought he tried to expand the offense, really got away from the run game, put more of the onus on the quarterback, which was not a good idea last season in particular. The defense took a step back as well with no Vic Fangio, who went off to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. And so a lot of moving parts for the Bears in 2019. Things did not go well, but this team is in a position to rebound and get back to the postseason in 2020. And I thought this was a solid draft. They lost some players in free agency that I thought they did a quality job of replacing here in the draft. Now, granted, Bears were in timeout for the second consecutive year due to the Khalil Mack trade. They're finally free from timeout, and they'll get a first-round pick next season in the 2021 draft. But only 2 picks in the first 5 rounds for the Bears, and both of those selections coming in the second round. So no first round pick, no third round pick, no fourth round pick for the Bears. All of the damage that they did essentially in this draft came in the second and the 5th. So this is one of those drafts where you're going to really see how good of a GM and a scout group that you have in Chicago, because not a lot to work with here in terms of true value. Now you're going to have to find some diamonds in the rough, and I think you may have unearthed one in the 5th round. We'll talk about that guy when we get there, but I like what the Bears did with what they had to work with, which wasn't much. So thought this was a quality draft for a team that really didn't have a ton of value in this draft, looking for value picks in the later rounds. So let's take a look at the Bears and what they were able to accomplish with Ryan Pace and company, who are looking for a massive bounce back year. They did some things in free agency, most of them subtraction from this roster, and maybe it's addition by subtraction. They did add Jimmy Graham and some guys like that to the mix. We'll see if those guys work out for the Bears or not. However, this draft, I think, is also going to be key in helping them turn some things around in the 2020 season. Let's take a look at what Ryan Pace and company did in the 2020 NFL Draft. As you can see, every selection made by the Bears are in front of you. 7 selections in all, 2 in the second round, 3 in the 5th round, 2 in the 7th round. Let's take a look at these selections. I've got write-ups for each and every single one of these players in front of me. I will be reading from them as I've broken each and every single one of these players down. And we start in the second round of this draft for the Chicago Bears. 43rd overall selection, tight end out of Notre Dame. Cole Kmet is the selection. 6'6", 262 pounds, 33-inch arms, 4.70 40. So good athleticism, size, and speed there in one package for Cole Kmet. 43 grabs for 515 yards and 6 scores in 11 games in 2019. For his career, 60 grabs, 691 yards, 6 touchdowns in 34 games. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. I'll give you that disclaimer right off the bat. So I'll be able to give you some in-depth knowledge on Cole Kmet specifically because I've watched his entire career. In the second round was where he was selected. That's the grade that I had on him. I thought he was a second round type of tight end. This wasn't a strong tight end draft class, so really, the first 4 tight ends or so was as good as it was going to get. And after that, I thought there was a significant drop off. So whether you had, a guy first, second, third, or fourth really didn't matter necessarily. It just really boiled down to what's your cup of tea. He was my 3rd rated tight end in this draft. He was taken first in this draft. I have no problems with that whatsoever. Again, not a strong tight end draft class. So not any of these guys really stood above the rest. So whether you had this guy going first or that guy going first or whatever the case may be, didn't really make that big of a difference. So I'm not going to knock the Bears for taking him off the board first. If you look at his entire package that he brings to the table, I think he might be the guy with the best ability to be the number 1 tight end in this draft class when it's all said and done, when we look back at this draft class and the tight end position. So size, at 6'6", 262, he doesn't have to do anything to his frame, really, to be honest with you. Maybe turn a little bit of his figure and frame into muscle, but he doesn't have to gain another pound. He doesn't have to lose another pound. Most of these tight ends that come into the league, they're 6'4", they're 245, and we're like, man, guys got to put on some weight. This guy's already 262 pounds, man. So really doesn't have to do much in the department of size. He's got everything you're really looking for. Hands. I've said that he was one of the better pass catchers at the tight end position in this particular draft. Not a lot of drops on film. Some really tough catches in traffic for him. Some diving grabs as well. So hands, I think he's one of the better pass catchers along with Colby Parkinson in this draft in terms of securing the football. Catch radius, talked about the 33-inch arms. Andy's 6'6", and on film, you see this guy go up, get the football in some tough situations with that kind of arm length, with the size that he already brings to the table. He's got a massive catch radius, one that quarterbacks are definitely able to take full advantage of. I talked about his ability to catch it in traffic. That's another big strength of his. A lot of tough contested catches on 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 6, and he comes down with the football and moves the sticks. Can stretch the field vertically up the seams. That 4.7 doesn't sound that juicy, but when you look at some of the better tight ends in football, the Zach Ertzes of the world and some of those guys, they don't run all that fast. They're 4.7 tight ends as well. Travis Kelce, he's a 4.6 guy. You look at Kelce and the way he's able to do work, and you're thinking, man, he's probably a 4.5 guy. Well, he's a 4.6 guy. Zach Ertz a 4.7 guy. So these better tight ends around the league, they move at around a 6'7" or so. So that's right in the wheelhouse of Cole Kmet. He's kind of right in the middle of Zach Ertz, who's probably more in the 4.75 range, and Travis Kelce, who's probably right in that 4.65 range, and he's right in the middle. So he's got the ability to stretch the seams vertically, get up the field, and you see that. You go watch the Georgia game. Go watch him in some of these games, and you'll see him stretching the football field vertically. Yards after contact, not making anybody miss. Okay, that's not what he does. But what he will do is run through your arm tackle. If you come up with a feeble attempt at a tackle, he will run through that and continue to rumble, stumble, and get yards into your secondary. Physical with the ball in his hands. I just mentioned that he is very physical after the catch. And so he's the guy that, and I need to make the distinction, physical with the ball in his hands. We'll talk about him without the ball in his hands, but with the ball in his hands, he's a load to bring down. Can be moved around. This is a guy that, can play the wing back, can play traditional inline tight end, can be your detached U in the slot. You can split them out all the way wide in situations. You get down in the red zone, you want a one-on-one matchup with the safety or a linebacker. You walk him out there, and they walk out that backer, and you get one-on-one, and you throw the fade ball up, and he can go and get it. So there are so many different things you can do with Cole Kmet when you line him up. So that's also an added benefit of a guy like Cole Kmet. Get to his weaknesses. He's stiff as a route runner. He's not going to break a dude off. He's not Travis Kelce, okay? He's not Zach Ertz. These guys are a little bit more free-flowing. They're fluid movers. They can get in and out of breaks. He's not that guy, all right? That's why there are a ton of catches in traffic, because he's not separating, which is fine. Because as I told you before, a wise man once told me, there are now 3 ways to separate in this league: speed, quickness, and size. He's got that size component, so he's perfectly fine with you throwing the football outside, him using his arms to extend while keeping a defender's shield away with his frame. So it doesn't separate running routes, and that's fine. He's still a very viable target nonetheless. below average blocking. That was the thing that I dinged him on the most, is that at Notre Dame, I didn't think he was a very sound blocker. I thought he could have used one more year of polishing as a blocker, but he didn't need to come back to school. He had dealt with some injuries. He had did everything that he needed to do. I don't think him coming back for an additional year would have elevated his draft stock any. He wasn't going to run any faster. He's a big guy. He's got everything he needs. Start earning already. Get into the NFL and start making you some money. So I didn't have a problem with him leaving, but he isn't a very good blocker at this point. He's willing to give you the effort, and that's the most important thing. Is I need a guy that's willing to put in the effort. If you're willing to learn and try, I, as a coach, am willing to give you all the tools necessary to get you up to speed where you need to be. But he's not there right now as we speak. No wiggle after the catch or stem at the stem of a route. He's a bland route runner. I kind of already mentioned that already, and that's perfectly fine. That's not his deal. You know, he's the guy that's going to run up the seam and be a big target that you can get the football to. He's the guy that if you fall asleep behind the wheel up the seam, he will run by you and get a big chunk play. He's the guy that if you throw it up in a crowd, he's 6'6" with 33-inch arms and he can go and get the football. He's the guy on 3rd and 5 that you need to get 6, and he's going to get you that first down and move the sticks. That's who he is. He's not a guy that's going to bop, 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 bop at the stem of a route, break you off, and separate and be wide-ass open. He's a guy that's going to sit down in zone coverage, find that hole, and give you a 12-yard gain. So just a couple of side notes with him. Broken collarbone after the 2018 season, and so he missed the first 2 games of the 2019 season. So that's why only 11 games instead of the 13 that Notre Dame participated in 2019. And then I also wrote down he saved his best for some of the biggest games of the season for the Fighting Irish. That Georgia game was his first game back of the season, and he was stellar. It was his best game of the season. It was his best game of his career, actually. So that's very encouraging. And I will say this. You can look at it as a positive or a negative. I'm a glass half full guy, so I look at it as a positive. He's trending in the right direction with his production. 43 grabs, 515 yards, 6 scores in 2019. But if you look at his production the first 2 years at Notre Dame, there's really nothing to speak of. He had 17 grabs coming into his final season at Notre Dame. 17 grabs, that's it in 2 seasons. And so the 43 grabs for the 515 yards and the 6 scores. He didn't have a touchdown to his name coming into 2019. So again, 1 year wonder from a production standpoint. If you want to bang him up there, you can. I don't do that because, again, I look at it as he's playing some of his best football. He's trending in the right direction, and he's only going to get better. My comp for him is Jack Doyle. All right, I know you might be thinking, Jack Doyle, what? Jack Doyle's a really solid NFL tight end and has been putting up some quality numbers for the Indianapolis Colts. So don't sleep on Jack Doyle. I think his ceiling is higher than that of a Jack Doyle. But when I look at him, he compares very favorably to Jack Doyle right now. In the second round, 43rd overall selection, tight end out of Notre Dame, Cole Kmet for me is a 4. It's a really solid pick. I love Cole Kmet's upside. His trajectory right now is going in the right direction, but as far as him being a complete tight end at this very moment, he's not quite there, but you can get him there, and I think this is a good spot for him in Chicago. As we move on to the next selection in this draft for the Bears, second round, 50th pick overall. Cornerback out of Utah, Jalen Johnson is the pick for me. 6 feet, 193 pounds, 31-inch arms, 4'5", flat, 40. 1 tackle for loss, no sacks, no forced fumbles, 11 pass breakups, 2 INTs, and a pick 6 in 13 games in 2019 for the Utah Utes. For his career, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, no forced fumbles, 21 pass breakups, 7 INTs, and 2 pick 6s in 40 games. I had a late first round to early second round grade on Jalen Johnson. I was a lot higher on him than some. And this was one of those weird cornerback drafts that after the first 2 guys, really all hell broke loose at the cornerback position. You could talk to 10 people and you'd get 10 different answers as to how 3 through 10 should go at the cornerback position. So I really liked Jalen Johnson. He was my 5th rated cornerback in this draft. 6 corners went off the board in the first round. I thought he should have been one of those guys. And so I thought you got a steal here. And again, I had an early second round grade. If he didn't go in the first, the late first, which is where I thought he should have gone, he should have been gone early second. You get him midpoint of the second round, getting closer to the late portion of the second round. So I think it's tremendous value for you. And I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. But strengths, solid size and length at 6 feet. 193, not the biggest guy in the world. He probably will put on an additional, 5 to 7 pounds. I'd like him to get around 200 pounds. But the 4.5 is plenty fast for a guy with his awareness, ball skills, and length with the 31-inch arm. So he's got everything you're necessarily looking for. He could stand to get a little bit bigger, but he's fine right now. Aggressive press at the line of scrimmage. He's a guy, and that's part of the reason that he was so high on my list of corners, is because of his aggressive nature at the line of scrimmage. Even when he gets beat, and it's not very often, he's not dissuade. He's still going to come in your face, delete the airspace, challenge you at the line of scrimmage, lay hands on you, make you uncomfortable, force you to beat press coverage. And I love that. I love guys that aren't swayed by getting beat once, because you're going to get beat. All corners get beat. I don't give a damn how good you are. Somebody else is going to get you at least once. And so he's not afraid to come up and delete that airspace and get in your face. Plant and drive ability. He's a guy that will plant his foot in the ground, drive on the football. You make a mistake, you're going to pay for a mistake. Jacob Eason found that out the hard way, making a poor throw and a poor decision outside on an out-breaking route. Throws it kind of to the inside. Jalen Johnson, key in quarterback eyes, sticks his foot in the ground, drives on that out-breaking route, picks it off, takes it the other way for a touchdown. That's the kind of ability he has and the kind of playmaking ability he brings to the table. Just as good in off coverage as he is in man, with tremendous ball skills. And that's something that you don't always get. Usually a guy is either better in man or he's better in off coverage. When you can plant and drive, you're good at both a lot of times, because off coverage, the big problem with off coverage is that you're essentially giving up 5 to 7 yards of real estate. And if a guy runs a quick route and a quarterback is 3 steps back, foot hits the ground, ball comes out, it's hard for you to stick your foot in the ground, drive on it, and make a play. Well, he's a guy that's very instinctual, sees what's going on, and if that receiver syncs up and that quarterback's back foot hits the ground and he thinks the ball's coming out, he's driving on it. So he's already there ready to make a play. Just like in man coverage, he's in the face of that receiver from the word go. And so he's already laying hands on that guy. He's already in phase. He's in his hip pocket. Now he's looking back at the quarterback to try to find the football. When that ball's in the air, he's attacking it as if it's meant for him. So he's just as good in off as he is in man to man. High football IQ. Recognizes route combos, stems, splits, etc. He's one of those guys that understands what you're trying to do. Okay, tight split. That means you're probably running an out-breaking route or something that's going to give the quarterback some space towards the sideline. So he's thinking in his head, probably not an in-breaking route here. Probably going to be something towards the outside. So he's looking at your splits. He's a guy that understands route combinations. So you got a out here, probably a corner coming behind me. You want me to sag up onto that out route so that the corner's wide open. Safety can't get over on top. I'm going to sag underneath this corner route or this bench route. All right. And I'm going to take that away so that you can't throw that. Now you got to throw that out route, which isn't going to be nearly enough for the first down because I'm going to rally up and come and tackle. So high football IQ, understands what the offense is trying to do and does a good job of taking things away. Aggressive at the point of catch. If he can't get his hands on the football, he's going to make sure that you don't come down with it, or at least he's going to give a hell of an effort to try to not let you come down with it. He's scraping at the arms. He's reaching for the football. He's pulling all the way down to the ground. Last second, he's still reaching and scratching and clawing. So very aggressive at the point of catch. LLC properties, you don't end up with 7 INTs without looking back for the football. Look, locate, and contest. If you don't look back, you can't locate the football. If you don't locate the football, you can't contest it in the way that will allow you to pick it off. You can only contest it by face guarding and, like I just talked about, raking at the arms, trying to rake the ball out. But a lot of times you're not going to come away with INTs that way. Love the fact that he's looking back for the football. And finally, he's a willing tackler. He's not a great tackler, but he's willing to come up there and throw his name in the hat. And so he's not one of those guys that's a bystander or an onlooker. There are a lot of those out there that like to watch everybody else get involved in the tackle. He's one of those guys that's going to get into the fray. Weaknesses. Does he have enough long distance speed? The USC game was a great example of him getting beat a couple of times, guys getting behind him. Him being aggressive corner at the line of scrimmage, and guys that are able to run were able to put him on their back hips, keep him on and get on top of him. Balls put out in front so they can run under it, and guys were able to beat him a couple of times in that game. Does he have enough long distance speed to run with some of these elite athletes in the NFL? Transitions aren't the smoothest. That's usually where the separation takes place. It's not because he runs a 4.5. It's not because he's being overzealous at the line of scrimmage. Usually it's when he transitions from that back pedal, or he's looking to flip his hips and turn into that full out sprint. That's when we get that slow, that one step slow transition that allows that receiver to get that step or two on him and stay on top of him. And then that makeup speed, lack thereof, comes into play, and he's not able to get to that guy before the ball gets there. So his transitions aren't the smoothest. That's one of his knocks. Can get into trouble sometimes, keying quarterback's eyes instead of shadowing wide receiver. USC game is another great example of that. Couple of guys were able to get behind him because the quarterback looked like he was going to get sacked, and so he kind of lets up. His receiver keeps running down the field, and he's kind of in no man's land, and now the receiver is way down the field, and the quarterback gets away, throws it up, and it ends up being a touchdown in double coverage. Or it's a situation where the quarterback rolls out, and that receiver was running an out breaking route. Now things kind of break down, and instead of him staying with his luggage, he's now focused on the quarterback. Now his guy turns and goes up the field. He's no longer in phase with that guy, and now it's a reception down the field. Or sometimes he's looking at that out-breaking route thing, and I can jump this and make a play, while all the while he's in cover 3 and he needs to be deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest. Well, his guy is kind of trickling up the sidelines, and he's looking at this out-breaking route thing, and I can make a play being greedy, and now the quarterback is fitting the football into a tight space up the sideline. So sometimes his eyes can get him into trouble, but that's usually the case with greedy corners that are ball hawks like Jalen Johnson. Just on the Carfax, had surgery in March on a torn labrum that he played through this season. So that's some toughness there as well. If you want to add that to the strength category, playing through a torn labrum, not easy. He did it for much of the season, had surgery in March, something else just to consider. But in the second round, 50th overall selection, corner out of Utah, Jalen Johnson for me is a 5. I thought you got tremendous value here at a position of need. You lost Prince Amukamara in free agency. You needed to replace Prince Amukamara, and you needed to really upgrade that cornerback position. And this is a guy that I think comes in and is going to do that for you right away. Love what he brings to the table. My comp for him is Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White was a guy drafted out of LSU 3 years ago by the Buffalo Bills, has come in and stamped himself as one of the premier corners in the league in such a short period of time. Very well respected. He came in the league with one of these kind of underrated games. Not very big, but always around the football. Wasn't the fastest guy, but always around the football. And you've seen a lot of those same characteristics translate to the next level. Just always around the ball, always around the receiver, pestering guys, forcing fumbles, doing everything. And I see a lot of those same qualities in Jalen Johnson. As we move on to the next selection in this draft for the Bears now. Remember, no third, no fourth, so we go straight to the 5th, where the Bears had 3 selections, the first of which, 155th overall, edge rusher out of Tulsa. Travis Gibson is the pick, 6'3", 261 pounds, 34-inch arms, 15 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles in 2019. For his career, 25 and a half tackles for loss, 13 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 2 pass breakups. Look, I'm going to just be very brutally honest. This is the guy that I was talking about at the top of the show when I said I thought you unearthed a gem in the 5th round. This is my guy right here. I was a lot higher on him than most because I see the upside in Travis Gibson. And I didn't always love the way they played him at Tulsa, and he still was able to produce high numbers. And he's very raw. He's still learning, and he's still adjusting to his new body. And so there's so many things to be excited about when you watch this guy. I could see him being a big time playmaker for you down the road. I had a late day 2, so 3rd round pick to an early day 3, 4th round grade on him. He goes in the 5th. So right off the bat, you see that I felt like you got some real value here. He was my 7th edge rusher in this draft. He ultimately ended up being the 13th edge rusher taken. There were some guys that went ahead of him when I'm like, really? You took him? Like, for example, Minnesota Vikings took DJ Wanham. Really? Over Travis Gibson? Like, that, it's not even close. I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I get it. But if you're looking for a guy that projects to the next level and has tremendous upside, that's not DJ Wanham. That's Travis Gibson. But that's nor here nor there. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. But size. He may even be able to add more of mass to his frame, but this is a guy that gained nearly 60 pounds once he hit the Tulsa campus and continues to get better and adjust and maybe even able to add more mass. He's 260 pounds right now, so he came to school at essentially 200 pounds, playing a totally different position. He switches over to edge rusher, and now he's 261, and he may be able to get to 270 pounds, 265. Like, he's a big dude already, and he may be able to get bigger. His length, man, 34-inch arms on that frame is amazing. It's what you're looking for. It's a true difference maker, and he still didn't even know how to use that length yet. Once he gets a hold of how to use it, and hopefully the coaching staff understands how to teach him how to use that length, he could be very, very scary. Quickness. His quickness is something that really was eye-popping for me. Something that jumped off the screen at me is his ability to get up the field. His first couple of steps off the snap are electric, and it's why I think this guy has a chance to be really dominant at the next level. Really good bend around the edge. Again, he's got that kind of Gumby thing going on where he can dip, rip, and finish around the edge. And not a lot of guys can do that. You know, not everyone has that bendability, flexibility to be able to do that. A lot of guys are stiff, can't find a way to bend. And at that angle that tackles find it tough to be able to push you around the pocket and then flatten to the quarterback. He has the ability to do that. High motor and intensity. This guy plays like his hair's on fire. I love it. I love guys with high motors that don't know how to turn it off. He's one of those guys that just gives you everything he's got on every single snap. When he gets to the quarterback, the ball comes out. 8 forced fumbles in his career. That is a huge number. Okay, this is a guy that when he gets to the quarterback, he's not just looking to get to the quarterback. He's not satisfied with just getting to the quarterback. He's looking to get that football out. And that's what I'm all about. Force turnovers, or at least give me an opportunity to force a turnover. Travis Gibson gives you that each and every single time. And then upside, his first of all, stack and shed capabilities. He's able to stack and then shed. And like I said, I didn't love how they always played him at Tulsa. They would reduce him inside at times, but he showed the ability to bang with the big boys on the interior and get away from them and get to ball carriers as well as on the outside. And so I think he's capable of doing that as well. And I think the tackles for loss in his career kind of bear that out. 25.5 versus 13 sacks. So you're telling me pretty even distribution there. 13 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss in his career. So good distribution there. And then finally, upside is through the roof. You see some components of a guy that still is putting it together, but the fact that he's this far along in his journey and it hasn't been that long, you feel really good. You see the speed. He's got a spin move. He can go inside with a crossover. There's some stuff here to work with. He hasn't even mastered how to use his hands, nor has he mastered his length. Maybe a latch and snatch would be a very beneficial tool in his toolbox. There's a lot here to like with Travis Gibson. Go to his weaknesses. Raw as can be. Technique and plan are a ways away. And again, that's to be expected for a guy making this transition. When he first got to Tulsa, this guy was a 200-pound offensive player that was trying to figure some things out. 200-pound linebacker. You know, he came from high school as a running back and a linebacker, and all of a sudden he gets to campus and they're like, man, you look like an edge rusher, and now he's got to put on some weight. Now he's got to gain 60 pounds. So he's still figuring some things out. But from a technique standpoint, got a long ways to go. That's where coaching is paramount. Got to teach this guy how to utilize all of the physical gifts he's been blessed with. 34-inch arms on a 6'3", 260-pound frame. You got to teach this guy how to use his hands, how to use that length to keep guys at bay and then latch and snatch them and get them out of the way and propel yourself towards the quarterback. There's some things he's got to learn. How to set tackles up. Speed, speed, speed. Now crossover to the inside. They've opened up their hips too early. Now the gate to the inside is open. Use it. They've got to teach him a rush plan. And if they can do that, you have something here. Can be engulfed in the run game. He's learning that he's got a 260-pound frame. He's learning that he's got length. They've got to show him how to be able to be a little bit stouter at the point of attack, how to get these guys off of him or keep them at bay. Don't allow these tackles and guards into your body, into your frame. You've got the length to be able to keep them at bay. He's got to learn how to do that. Was used in a somewhat unproductive way. I've mentioned that already. I didn't love how they utilized him at Tulsa at all times. A lot of times they were reducing this guy inside. He's 260 pounds. Why are you playing him inside? And there would be a 3-man rush and they're playing him inside. Let this guy rush off the edge where he can use that quickness and that speed to beat a guy one-on-one instead of him getting double teamed. So I didn't think he was always used the best, and yet he still produced some big-time numbers. Loses his side of the ball at times. He can be over-aggressive, not really seeing, and that's usually a byproduct of a guy that is brand new to a position. I was watching a guy for the Denver Broncos named McTelvin Agim. He's kicking inside the defensive tackle, first year doing it, and he's so preoccupied with beating these guards coming from the outside that he didn't even see the ball. And sometimes Travis Gibson gets caught up in that nonsense as well, where he's so preoccupied with beating the guy in front of him, he has no idea where the football is, just needs to be able to be aware of what's going on around him. And I think that will get better as time progresses. Scott forced 5 fumbles in 2018. So this is a guy with some production. I think he's got a chance to be really special. And I love the fact that you went out and you signed Robert Quinn this offseason, because he's got the same kind of frame as a Robert Quinn. He's got the same kind of movement skills as a Robert Quinn. And so what better guy to learn from than one of the preeminent sack guys over the last decade in Robert Quinn, who revitalized his career with Dallas last year. You signed him to a long-term deal. I thought it was a lot of years, 5 years for a guy that's probably north of 30 years old. And there are probably some escape ramps over, the next, after the second or third year. But I just thought it was a long deal. But in any event, I think this is the perfect guy for him to learn from. In Robert Quinn, I think Travis Gibson is in a great spot. Khalil Mack on one side and Robert Quinn on the other side. 2 really good pass rushers for this guy to kind of soak up all that information from. My comp for him is Randy Gregory. He's got that kind of frame. Now, Gregory was a really slender guy, smaller guy, 230 some odd pounds when he came into the league. But Randy Gregory could bend. Randy Gregory had elite quickness off the edge. Randy Gregory, there was a reason he was going to be a first-round pick if not for all the off-field issues, and still ultimately was a late second, early third by the Dallas Cowboys. And there's a reason why the Cowboys keep giving this guy chance after chance, even though he probably should be out of the league. He's talented. Travis Gibson is very talented. It reminds me a lot of Randy Gregory coming out of Nebraska. There's a lot to like here in the 5th round, 155th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Tulsa. Travis Gibson for me is a 4, man. I love this selection. I think you've unearthed a gem here. We're going to see. It's going to take a little bit of time. I don't expect him to jump right out of the gate with an 8.5 sack season. Wouldn't shock me. Well, I don't expect that to happen. But, in year 2, year 3, I wouldn't be shocked if you're talking about an 11 sack season for Travis Gibson. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. As we go to the next selection in this draft for the Bears, 5th round, 163rd pick overall, cornerback out of Georgia Southern, Kendall Vildor is the pick. 5'10", 191, 32-inch arms. The Moses Malone, 40. 3 tackles for loss, no sacks, no forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups, 2 INTs in 11 games for Georgia Southern in 2019. 9 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 24 pass breakups, 9 INTs in 48 games for Kendall Vildor in his Georgia Southern career. So those 9 INTs stick out. Had a 5th or 6th round grade on him. So 5th round pick for the Bears makes sense for me. Give you my comp for him a little bit later on. His strengths: gets low in his stance and maintains that balance throughout his back pedal for smooth transitions. I talked about Jalen Johnson not having the most smoothest of transitions when he is going from back pedal to turn or from that turn to sprint. It's not always the cleanest Kendall Vildor does have a very smooth bat pedal. He's low in his stance, and usually when you're low in your bat pedal, it's going to make for smooth transitions and easy flips of the hip. A good length for the cornerback position, those 32-inch arms. That's money right there. Most times corners, 29, 30-inch arms. Anytime you got a guy with 32 or 33-inch arms, you're in heaven as a defensive backs coach, because that's rare, and that can make up for a lack of speed or lack of something else in some other area, some other deficiency that you may have. Length can make up for it if you've got it, and he does. Capable of moving around the field. This is a guy that I saw line up at safety for a couple of snaps, lined up in the slot, played out wide. So they moved him around at Georgia Southern. And so you can do a little bit of everything with this guy. Not saying that he's going to excel at all of those different things that you ask him to do. Personally, I'd prefer if this guy just were asked to do one thing, master that one thing, get really good at it, and that's the way he can contribute. But if need be, in a pinch, you got a guy here with a little bit of versatility. Will trigger downhill to make a tackle if he sees it. He's got to be in the right frame of mind, and he's got to see it early. But if you throw like a swing screen to a running back out of the backfield or a wide receiver screen and he's off coverage, he'll just charge into the backfield and he'll blow it up. Won't necessarily make the tackle, but he'll blow it up. He'll slow up the process, jumble it up, and then the help will arrive, and it won't be as productive a play as you had intended. Tested well at the combine. 22 reps of 2 1/4 for a corner with 32-inch arms is very impressive. That means he's a strong guy. 39.5-inch vert means he can get up, and you actually see that on tape. He can get up. Levitation, Holmes. And also the 4.44 40. So, you put all those things together, and I think that's what got Kendall Vildor drafted in the 5th round by the Chicago Bears. Has ball production and ball skills. The 9 interceptions, you cannot sleep on that. 24 pass breakups. He's around the football, 9 of them picked off, and 3 in each of the last 2 seasons. So this is a guy that, I watched some of those picks. Some of them were trash. I'm not going to lie to you. Balls tipped in the air, right place, right time. Look, there's something to be said about right place, right time. All right, but at the end of the day, if you can get your hands on some footballs and make some plays, I'm all for it. 3 this past year, 3 in 2018, so 9 for his career. He's done some good things throughout his time at Georgia Southern. LLC properties, the only way you're going to get 9 interceptions is by looking back for the football. If you're not looking back for the football, trust me, you're not going to luck into 9 picks. It just doesn't happen that way. So he has LLC properties, look, locate, and contest. You get to his weaknesses. Doesn't seem to play to his time speed. That 4.44 seems to be a bit misleading, because when I watch him, I feel like guys can get on top of him very easily. And there's really no excuse for it, because he's got the time speed. I talked about the transitions being pretty clean and fluid. I really can't answer as to why guys are consistently getting on top of Kendall Vildor, but they are. And so I don't know if that 4.44 is really that accurate or in terms of his playing speed. We'll see. Missing the acceleration on the plant and drive. A lot of underneath completions on Kendall Vildor, especially when he's in off coverage. He's not sticking his foot in the ground and coming down with the aggressiveness that I would like him to. And so I think he needs to be a little bit better. And honestly, I don't know if he has that ability to. Normally, either you have it or you don't in terms of acceleration on the plant and drive. Either you can stick your foot in the ground and come downhill and make a play on the ball, or you can't. And so I don't know if that's something he can improve upon or not. Maybe having better anticipation will help in that department, but right now he's lacking. Not physical with wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. A lot of press and bail for him. And if that's what you're comfortable with, cool. Not everybody is built to lay hands on guys at the line of scrimmage. And so you'd think a guy with 22 reps of 2 1/4 would be more than up to the challenge of laying his hands on guys and trying to disrupt them at the line of scrimmage. But if that's not your thing, all right, do you. I just want you to be comfortable out there. And then finally, doesn't add real value to the run defense. This is a guy that really is somewhat passive-aggressive in that regard. Like I told you, if he sees it, he triggers downhill and it's impressive. And that's where you kind of see the 4.4 speed. He's like a blur sometimes. But there are a lot of times where he's just kind of sitting back like, hey, y'all got it, right? And they're like, hey, we can use your help, Kendall, though. You know, he's like, but it looked like y'all got it, though. It's like 4 of y'all up there. Y'all don't really need me, do you? Like, yeah, we need you. It's 3 offensive linemen, and they big as shit. Come help us. And he's like, all right. And then by the time he gets there, they're like, man, don't worry about it. We got it. He's like, I told you. I thought y'all had it anyway. They're like, man, get out of here. You know, like, he has to be a little bit more aggressive in the run game. Right now, it just feels like he's just out there. You know, it's like 10 against 11 in the run game. And he needs to be more of a part of what they're doing, trying to get guys on the ground. He did miss 2 games with an ankle injury in 2019. That's something on the Carfax, not something you should be that alarmed about. But in any event, 5th round, 163rd pick overall, corner out of Georgia Southern, Kindle Vildor, for me, is a 3. I comp him to Phillip Gaines, the ex-Rice corner that was selected by the Kansas City Chiefs about 4 or 5 years ago in the draft. Has been okay in the league, but hasn't really made his mark. And so Kindle Vildor reminds me of him a lot. I was really high on Phillip Gaines coming into the league. We'll see if Kindle Vildor can be better than Phillip Gaines. As we move on to the next selection by the Bears, another 5th round pick, their final 5th round pick, their 3rd and final one, 173rd pick overall, wide receiver out of Tulane, Darnell Mooney is the selection, 5'10", 176, 4.38 40, 48 grabs for 713 yards and 5 scores in 13 games for the Green Wave in 2019. For his career, 154 grabs, 2,572 yards, and 19 scores in 50 ball games at Tulane for Darnell Mooney. I had a 5th round grade on him. That's where you took him. So that to me is good value. Strengths, speed, 4.38. Any way you slice it, that's fast as hell. And there's no other way to say it, but that's pretty damn fast. And that's going to get you past a lot of corners in this league. And so his speed is the first thing that jumps off the screen at you. Body control. I was so impressed with his ability to get up. He's got some explosion, folks. Whether it's running or jumping, this guy can get up. There's a catch versus Auburn over the middle of the field where he's off the ground with what looks like a 45-inch vertical leap. It's ridiculous. And his ability to contort his body, go up in the air, get the football, go down and dig it out. He's got tremendous body control. And so it offers a much bigger catch radius than you would assume you're getting with a 5'10 receiver. Ability to track and attack the football in the air is probably my favorite thing about Darnell Mooney, maybe outside of his speed. Obviously, speed threatens defenses, makes guys worry. But his ability to go and get the football, whether he's tracking a deep ball in the air or it's a ball that's 50-50 that's thrown up and he needs to go and get it, he goes and attacks the football in the air. He doesn't wait for it to come to him. He goes and gets it. And so his ability to track it and then attack it is it's next level. It's one of his biggest attributes to date. Toughness. This is a guy at 5'10", 176. Not many of these guys want the smoke of balls over the middle. They just don't. They're not looking to put themselves in harm's way. They want no parts of that safety. They don't want to see any linebackers. This guy doesn't care. You throw him the dig route over the middle field, he's going to go get it. You're throwing him a slant into a kill shot, he's going to get it. You throw him a skinny post backside, safety's bearing down on him, he's going to go and get it. I love this guy's toughness. He's fearless and he does not care. Catching traffic. Many catches of his are in traffic, and it's not because he can't separate. It's just because guys are right there. His quarterback, I'm going to tell you right now, his quarterback was simply throwing the football up Eli Manning style, like some blind throws, like pressure's coming, whoop, I'm just going to throw it up, and Darnell will make a play for me, and that he did. And so before he would even get to the stem of his route, before he would even think that to look for the ball's already in the air and it's coming. And he's got to make an adjustment and a play on it. And so a lot of his passes that he caught were in traffic. He had 5 touchdown grabs, all 5 of them. And I watched all 5 of them. All 5 of them were in traffic, in tight contested coverage, and he came down with them. So this is a guy that has the ability to catch it in traffic despite his diminutive stature. A good release off the line of scrimmage, man. I've watched him abuse a corner in a game off the line of scrimmage. Watch him beat some Auburn corners, Noah Igbenogany off the line of scrimmage. But I watched him abuse some dudes coming off the line of scrimmage, breaking them off, and guys kind of turning, doesn't know if he's going inside, outside on the release, and then going inside, and that guy's all lost, hips all lost in the sauce. He's got a really good plan coming off the line of scrimmage. He can play out wide as a outside receiver, or he can play inside in the slot. I think at the next level, he's probably going to be a slot receiver, but he can play either one and excel at both. And he can make you miss. You know, there's a catch and run late in the ball game versus Navy in a game that they trailed big in, that they ended up roaring back and tying that game and sending it to overtime before losing to the midshipmen. But there's a catch late in that ball game on an outbreaking route where he's able to run up the sidelines, juke a guy, stop, jump cut backwards, then spin on a guy, and then make another guy miss and get all the way down to the 2-yard line. So he can definitely make you miss out in space, can Darnell Mooney. And so there's a lot to like here with him. Weaknesses. There are some concentration drops on film. You know, I watched him in 18 versus Ohio State on a slant that's right there in his face, and he bobbles it twice, goes up in the air, should have been picked off, ends up being caught by his teammate. But, you know, those are the types of plays that usually backfire, and that usually gets picked off. There's some drops, you know, every now and again. There aren't as many, but for a guy that has the talent that Darnell Mooney has, you'd like to see. And it's not an issue of hands. Simply him trying to make a play before he has the ball and not looking it in. He can eliminate those. Really thin frame. Now, that's something that he can't help. And he doesn't have the type of frame that will allow him to put on, 15 pounds at the NFL level as he gets into the Bears' weight and conditioning and nutrition program. He's not going to bulk up to 191. Like, the biggest this guy's getting is like 181. He may be able to put on 5 more pounds, but not much else. He doesn't have the kind of frame that's going to get that much bigger. And finally, he needs to be a bit more detailed in his routes. He saw a lot of free releases. When he didn't see free releases, that's when you saw him pay attention to detail on his routes. But when he gets a free release and he gets to run up the field, he's kind of just trying to get into his routes. He's in a hurry to get into his route instead of him setting it up to create separation. So I think he could be a little bit more detailed in what he's doing instead of just trying to get to the post. Show him that you go into the corner before you break him off and go to the post. He's just going straight to the post. Well, that defender can see that now. He's right in your hip pocket. So I think he could be a little bit more detailed in what he's doing from a route running perspective. But Darnell Mooney is very intriguing. My comp for him is Aldrick Robinson, a 6th round pick of the Redskins, 5th or 6th round pick of the Redskins back in 2012 out of SMU. Has had some really solid career seasons in his career to this point, whether it was in San Francisco or Minnesota or with the Redskins. So this is a guy that, has a little bit of talent here in Darnell Mooney. See some of the same things we saw out of Aldrick Robinson. And if he's utilized correctly, if you cultivate his talents properly, this could easily be a 4 for you down the road. But right now, for me, Darnell Mooney is a 3 as we continue on in this draft and we get to the 7th round. 2 7th rounders for the Bears, starting off with the 226th pick overall, offensive lineman out of Colorado. Arlington Hambright is the selection, 6'5", 300 pounds, 12 games in 2019, 12 starts at left tackle in 2019 for the Buffaloes. In his career, only 18 games played, 17 starts at left tackle. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Strims, I'm not going to lie to you. I went into this tape thinking, okay, this guy's probably going to stink. And I do that from time to time. I try not to do that. One of the biggest things you have to do is go into watching tape objectively, open mind, no assumptions being made. It's hard sometimes when you listen to people on the outside. And I had no idea. No one talked about Arlington Hambright. I'm just talking in general terms. But, sometimes you hear something about a guy, and so you go in looking for that. I try to go in clear mind, blank slate, and you formulate your own opinion. In my mind, I was saying he's probably going to stink. And I was wrong. There's something here to Arlington Hambright. Moves well, mirrors well. I did not think he was going to move very well. That's the first thing I must admit. He can pull and he can get to the second level. Like, it's not all bad. I was actually shocked. Like, hey, Arlington, that's not bad, bro. So there's something here with him. Does a good job of keeping defenders in front of him. And I know you're thinking, he's an offensive lineman. Duh, that's his job. Let me elaborate. He's got a punch that he uses to keep guys at bay, knock them off kilter. He's got a two-hand chuck. So the punch is a one-hand chuck. That's a jab. Bow. All right, and it's a strong, stiff, sturdy jab. Bow. Knocks a guy off kilter. Then he's got a two-hand chuck that discombobulates a guy. So, it's one thing to give you the one-hand chuck. That looks different than a two-hand chuck that's a little bit more aggressive and assertive. And so he's got a two-hand chuck. And then he's got to lock your ass up where he just grabs you and now you're not going anywhere. He's not letting you go and you're not getting anywhere. And that's refreshing because I don't see a lot of guys with multiple ways at keeping guys at bay. He's got multiple ways and he switches it up so you really don't know what's coming. Impressive. Again, he anchors down versus bull rush. I said to myself, he's 300 pounds. Somebody's going to get up under his pads. He's 6'5". He's probably going to be standing up straight. Somebody's going to probably get under his pads and drive him back. No, I was wrong. He has knee bend. He has a good, sturdy, firm base. Guys aren't really pushing him back. And when they do, he's able to get control of the rep and anchor down and not allow that guy to collapse the pocket. So really impressed there too. Generates run movement in the run game. Again, didn't think he was going to do that at 300 pounds. I'm like, probably not going to really be a man mover. Well, he did move some guys against their will. That was something that I was surprised by. He's got upside. And, I told you I don't like saying that with players because everyone's supposed to have upside this time, of their careers. They're going from college to the NFL. There's so much left that they have to learn, this, that, and the third. So I don't really use the upside card. But when you're talking about a guy that's only got 17 career starts at the collegiate level, this is a guy that played 2 years at JUCO before transferring to Oklahoma State. Then he redshirted a year there, and then he played in 6 or 7 games for Oklahoma State before then, as a graduate transfer, going to Colorado and starting for 12 games, which was the most games he had ever started at the FBS level of his career. So you're really talking about a guy, and he missed 7 games due to injury in 2018, which is why there wasn't a bunch of starts at Oklahoma State. So you're talking about a guy with not a ton of experience. Speaking of which, let's get to his weaknesses. Can be lazy with his feet at times or slow out of the blocks. All right, slow out of his stance. There are only a handful of times I saw him get beat around the edge with just pure quickness. And a lot of times it was because he didn't move his feet. He's being lazy. He wanted to lunge instead of him actually moving his feet and opening up his hips. And so he can get lazy with his feet at times where he's like, I should be able to stay, stand stationary, stand still and not have to worry about a guy beating me to the outside. And you're wrong. So you just got to stay consistent. Move your feet. Struggles with backside cut blocks. He struggles with cut blocks in general. Not very good at backside cut blocks or just cut blocks in general. When it's a 3-step drop, quarterback's getting it out quick. Your job is to cut the guy in front of you. It's almost like he does this half-hearted log roll. It's really abysmal. But backside cut blocks are bad. He could have easily picked up a chop block a couple of times. Guys engaged. He's coming with a sloppy cut down block. And a couple of times on the backside, he's trying to get there. He's cutting a guy from behind. That's a penalty. So I'd like to see him be a little bit better with that backside cut-off block or just cut blocks in general. Limited experience. I talked about that already. 7 games missed in 2018 due to injury. So not a lot of starts in 2018. 12 starts in 2019 is really the extent of what you have from Arlington Hambright. So, there's a lot. And that's why I talked about upside. There's a lot for him left to learn. That's why it's so encouraging because you see this in those 12 starts and you're like, man, there's something here potentially. But his arm length may kick him inside. He's got 32-inch arms, which means more likely than not, he's going to have to kick inside. That's not long enough reach at the NFL level. to be prolific enough to hold it down on the outside. I'm not one to talk about arm length unless it's presented to me as a problem on film. I didn't see that necessarily, but more likely than not, that might force him to have to kick inside to guard, and it might not be the worst thing in the world for him. In the 7th round, 226th overall selection, offensive lineman out of Colorado, Arlington Hambright for me is a 3, man. There's something to Arlington Hambright, man. He's got some Cornelius Lucas type traits, a guy that could be solid for you. Maybe you find another one of those Charles Leno Jr.'s here in the 7th round, like you hit gold, 4 or 5 years ago with Charles Leno Jr. out of Boise State. Maybe there's one of those here for you in Arlington Hambright. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. As we wrap up this Bears draft in the 7th round, 227th pick overall, offensive lineman out of Tennessee State, Lachavious Simmons is the pick. 6'5", 290 pounds, 36-inch arms. Wowzers. Okay, 12 games, 12 starts, 7 at left guard, 5 at left tackle in 2019 for the Tennessee State Tigers. You go to his career stats, 41 games, 26 starts, 9 at right tackle, 9 at left guard, 8 at left tackle. So this is a guy that I watched on tape. And I'm telling you, this guy plays everywhere. Everywhere except center. This guy's got experience at. And a plethora of experience. All over the place. I mean, you could watch him in one game, and he'll play 4 out of the 5 positions on the line. Again, with the exception being center. He's playing everywhere. And I think that's also something that probably is really enticing to the Bears. Is like, hey, on game day, we've got a guy here that can play any of the offensive line positions outside of center. And I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, they could teach him to play that. But who's teaching a guy with 6'5", 290 pound, 36-inch arm frame to play center? Nobody's trying to do that. Really, what you're hoping is that this guy balloons to 315 in your watchful eye, under your watchful eye, and it's all good weight. And he shows the ability to be able to play left tackle. That's what you're hoping to develop him over the next 2 years on the practice squad. Work with this guy while he puts on weight, while he hones his craft and gets better from a technique standpoint, because he's got a lot of technical work to get done. But you're hoping that this guy with 36-inch arms is able to get it, put on 15 pounds, get to 305, get to 310, and then all of a sudden you got yourself a real left tackle, or even right tackle. It doesn't have to necessarily be left tackle. He could be right tackle. But 36-inch arms belongs on the outside. So you want this guy to work at tackle. Maybe guard is his future, but you want him to work at tackle. Big frame that can add mass and ridiculous length. I've kind of already talked about that, and he's going to have to get bigger. 290. This is not the 1990s. 290 pounds. Not going to get it done at this level. Extreme versatility. I've already spoken to that. Can play 4 out of the 5 offensive line positions, which is just ridiculous. Has a number of starts at multiple positions. 9 at right tackle, 9 at left guard, 8 at left tackle. So he's all over the place in terms of his starts. He can start just about anywhere. Good feet and torque to snap defenders out of rush lanes or onto the ground. He was tossing guys around at Tennessee State. Obviously, there's only one prerequisite to getting drafted when you play at a small school. That's dominate the competition. And at times, he was a man amongst boys, tossing guys on the ground. And that hip torque that you see, his ability to turn his ass, run his feet, turn his ass, and use that torque to then snap a guy out of a gap, or in certain cases, pick a guy up off his feet and dump him, was a big-time thing that he was able to do. So you like that torque. You like that snap that he has in his hips to be able to get guys and uproot them out of gaps. Solid recovery with those 36-inch arms. That's a minimum requirement. You got 36-inch arms. If you get beat, you should be able to get back into play and push a guy around the pocket with 36-inch arms. And solid mirror ability. You know, it's not the prettiest. His hand placement, sometimes his feet are all over the place. His base isn't always the best. Plays with a narrow base sometimes. His hand placement is all over the place, up around the neck and headgear, outside of the shoulder pads. It's again, a lot of work to be done, but he can stay in front of guys. He's got the athleticism to be able to move his feet and stay in front of guys and keep them in front of him. So there's that. Weaknesses: susceptible to losing leverage battle by playing up high. He pops up out of his stance. He's 6'5", and he stands up. He's got this tendency to just stand up. And when you do that, you lose the leverage battle. You show your numbers, and guys are able to get up under your pads and drive you back. Doesn't have a clear position right now. Talked about him being a jack of all trades, master of none, but this is a guy right now that you look at and you say he's got the frame of a tackle, the outer workings of a tackle, because still got to get bigger. But at 6'5", 290 with 36-inch arms, he's got the look of a tackle, all right? But he played mostly guard. When you watch him on tape, most of his film is at the guard position. Even games in which he starts at tackle, he eventually kicks inside to guard at some point. So he's a hard eval, really. What do you project him as? If I'm the Bears, he's starting out as a tackle. That's what I'm going to work him at the most. And I'm hoping that he evolves into a diamond in the rough 7th round gem that we were able to work with on the practice squad for a couple of years, develop him, and now he's ready to give us some quality snaps at right or left tackle. At some point, Bobby Mass is going to conk out on you at right tackle. Be nice to have a Lachavious Simmons or an Arlington Hambright ready to step in when he's done. Needs to fill out his frame. Obviously, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know at 290 pounds. And he needs technical work, and I've kind of already spoken to that. Narrow base, hands are all over the place. Needs to find a way to shoot his hands into better locations and land them in ways where they won't get him penalized or doesn't get him beat. And also, I think he needs to learn how to play with better leverage, bend at the knees, not at the waist. So there's a lot of things he can work on, but he's an athlete. He's got long arms, and there's some things here that you have to definitely like about Lachavious Simmons in the 7th round, but he's extremely raw, and he's got a long way to go, and because of that, he is a 2 to wrap up this Bears draft. So we look at what Ryan Pace did. Again, considering the circumstances surrounding their draft, only 2 picks in the top 160 some odd selections. Well done. Job well done for Ryan Pace. I thought there were 2 quality 2nd rounders that they snatched up, and their first 5th rounder has a chance to be a difference maker, I believe. And even those 2 7th rounders, not all bad. So interesting draft, to say the least. And I thought Ryan Pace made the most out of what he was given. And so for that, you get a 3.43, which amounts to a solid, rock solid B for Ryan Pace in what was a difficult draft to navigate because of the circumstances surrounding the amount of selections and where they were. And so I thought they actually made out pretty good considering everything that they had to endure. So that's going to do it for the Chicago Bears and their 2020 NFL Draft wrap-up. Thank you for joining me. Make sure that you like this video. Subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Speaking of being tuned in and not missing a thing, another way that you can keep tabs on what's going on with the Louie T Network is to follow me on socials, on Twitter, at Louie T Network, on IG, Louie T Network _. Okay. Also, check out the Louie T Network podcast. Brand new episode available. So check that out wherever podcasts are available. Louie T Network podcast is available there as well. And so remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Take care of yourselves. We'll reconvene at a later date and time. Take care. Have a good one.